North Carolina getting here because Winston Forsyth County Schools will be doing a reduction in staff plan moving forward. Remember, we talked about this early this summer when we told y'all that they were in trouble, especially when that man who glues down his hair decided to freeze everybody's money, and they were absolutely waiting for that money to come from the state because, like I said, it was really dire need, and this was one area that we discussed at great lengths. Now it is coming to full circle, and unfortunately, they are looking at reducing 300 staff members. Now, here's the thing: we even said back then that they needed to go to their CO staff and be like, "Look, honey, sweetheart, we know your work is important. However, monitoring what's going on in the district versus being in them classrooms, priorities, baby, priorities, because there's 600 CO staff, and again, we also know that teacher um, staffing issues is really an issue. But the fact that you are hitting the EC department when they have had consistent enrollment over the past few years and they have not seen a drop in enrollment over the past few years is wild work because you're looking at cutting 300 staff members and 160 of those are coming from the EC department. What are those students supposed to do? Especially those, and continuously packing more students into one classroom is not going to be it when you are trying to serve the needs of these students. Parents, I've told y'all, time and time again, even before we got to this point. I said this earlier this summer. I say this last year. I said this a year before last. Y'all absolutely have to be loud and proud with and be the advocates for your babies because at the end of the day, the district's got the money or they know how to get the money. But they don't want to have to do that because they are used to you all just taking whatever you're given and doing more with less. And they were hoping that y'all were going to do even more with less and less. But now the damn cat's out the bag. Now, understand something. Again, we're looking at teachers and TAs being removed from their roles as EC department employees. But what they're thinking they're going to do is, like we said, moving some of the central office staff or removing some of the central office staff into some of these classroom positions. Doesn't To me, of course, that does not equal out when you're looking at EC because EC is a whole nother situation. That is a whole nother beast that you have to be prepared for. And if you are not trained, you are not, ready to go into that role, this is not for you. But here's their plan. They're going to remove 45 APs and 6 COs, which is what they will be putting into 10-month teacher positions. And that is assistant principals and central office staff respectively. And this is typically looked at as a demotion. However, it's like an unemployment line, still have a job. What we doing? And honestly, I'm sorry for anybody in that central office staff, but again, as a former teacher, absolutely looking at this sector of students that is absolutely deserving of having a classroom teacher and not having that ratio overextended, there's no there's no compromise here for me. Now, here's the other thing. How do we get here? $46 million deficit is how we got here. And this is coming from the improper use of Pandisi era funding. Now, it's going to be really interesting because did they go back and get those other schools in those affluent areas that were absolutely using those funds for, new football fields, new locker rooms, new sports related things? Not to say those things are not important. However, they're not as important as education because it's looking like this district utilized most of those funds for educational purposes. And I said most because, of course, there were salaries, there were budget discrepancies. Now, salaries, again, we are looking at a high teacher shortage that is, nationwide. So, again, if they had to do what they had to do to cover these salaries and whatnot, so they won't be like Durham that was over there bouncing checks, yeah, paychecks. Or transportation. Remember when Durham was like, "Hey, we know your baby got to get to school. However, we don't want to pay these bus drivers, so just tell them don't worry about it. We won't count this absence." That was absolutely last year. Now some other things was overspending on bonuses. They spent in the tune of 75 million in the years of 22 and 23 together. So I don't know where that all that money went to. The county has absolutely sent some of their funding to try to cover some of this, in the tune of like 8.5 million. But of course, 8.5 million on 46 million, that's like a drop in the hat. So that's just kind of where they are right now. So parents, again, at this point, I don't know what is going to be the solution, but if ever there was a cautionary tale, other counties, you'll need to pay attention because this could absolutely be you.
Like and subscribe to Mom's channel.